Welcome to CBC Windsor News at 6. I'm Meg Roberts. Thanks so much for spending part of your evening with us tonight. A Leamington man is going to extreme measures to keep his porch. That's after a dispute with the municipality. Plus, NDP leader Jagmeet Singh in Windsor today addressing what lots of people have on their mind: inflation. And a local animal rehabilitation center says it would be awesome, oh Possum, if they could get some help from the public. They're currently caring for dozens of marsupials. A dispute that goes back decades has a Leamington man threatening to handcuff himself to a pole on his back deck. As the CBC's Dale Molnar reports, that's in order to keep the town from tearing it down.
So basically, the town shows up with their men to try and rip apart my deck. Simply handcuffing myself to the pole.
Mike McQueen demonstrates what he will do if town workers try to come and dismantle his deck. The town says it owns the property where the deck is, and they have sent him a letter ordering him to remove it. McQueen says no way.
I've been taking care of this property for 24 years, and now they're threatening to rip my deck apart, take my flagpole down, and it's just not going to happen.
It's a dispute that's been going on for several years. Joe McHale is one of the landowners in the area. He says a previous council and administration cut a deal with the federal government and landowners along the waterfront to use their land to build a promenade in 1995.
The town did deed back a registered claim signed to each homeowner that once the boardwalk is built, that any excess land beyond the boardwalk will be deeded back to these homeowners. So out of the 18 or so homeowners, 13 of them 2 years ago were granted their lands back. 5 weren't, and we don't know why.
The 5 include McHale's lots, McQueen's lots, and his neighbor's lot.
The property line now travels in this direction. Makes a curve all the way up to my deck.
McQueen traces out the property line where he says the town claims his property now ends. The town says the lands belong to it because they originally belonged to the federal government before the promenade was built, and then the federal government transferred the lands to the province, and then the town ultimately bought the lands from the province in 2012. A statement from the legal department reads in part, "It appears as though some abutting property owners may be under the impression that they, at some point in time, were the owners of those lands. However, the federal government did not agree. But McHale says the current administration is ignoring a letter from the previous administration saying the town will then remit the land to the landowners." He also says that the area the town is now claiming used to be owned federally. That was when the water line came up that far, but new break walls were installed and the water has receded. McHale believes landowners are entitled to that land. He says everyone needs to be treated equally.
That whatever you gave to Peter, you give to Paul. So the 13 homeowners that received their land would mean the other 5 should receive the same.
In the meantime, he is taking the town to court. McQueen might, but for now, he awaits a possible standoff. Dale Molnar, CBC News, Leamington.
In Michigan, charges have been laid against Republicans over the 2020 election. It appears to be the first criminal charges issued against fake electors. The CBC's Magda Gabriselassie is following the story for us from Washington.
In every state after a presidential election, electors help certify the results. Well, in Michigan, you had 16 Republicans now being accused of being fake electors. During the 2020 election, you had a number of states where Trump supporters signed certificates falsely claiming that Trump won when it was actually Biden. Now, none of that was accepted, but it did lead to a number of investigations, and now you have Michigan laying 8 charges each against the accused, including conspiracy to commit election law forgery. So here's Michigan Attorney General.
This plan to reject the will of the voters and undermine democracy was fraudulent and legally baseless. The false electors' actions undermine the public's faith in the integrity of our elections.
Now, if found guilty, those that are accused could face a lengthy prison sentence. For some of the charges that have been laid, they carry a maximum sentence of 14 years in prison.
That's the CBC's Magda Gabriselassie in Washington. Back here in Windsor now, where NDP leader Jagmeet Singh is on tour, like others sounding alarms about inflation.
We have heard from so many families that the sharp and rapid increase in interest rates have resulted in mortgage misery.
Singh says he's been hearing from families who are worried they may lose their homes. While the cost of most goods and services continues to rise, it's not rising at the speeds Canadians were seeing over the last 2 years. The one area that continues to see inflation increase, mortgages. That's because the Bank of Canada keeps hiking the interest rates. Singh says there's more the government should be doing to help.
We're talking about what we can do right now to give people relief. There's a lot of countries that are looking at real solutions to give people a bit of break who are struggling with the cost of the mortgage. We want to see those aggressive steps being taken here in Canada, steps like Spain has taken to force banks to give lower interest rates to families that are struggling, like Portugal has put in a subsidy for people that can't pay their mortgage right now. We need to see some aggressive measures put in place to give people some relief, to give people a break so they don't lose their homes.
Companies looking to build parts for electric vehicles will now have access to new training workshops. The federal government is spending $200,000 to create these programs here in Windsor.
What we want to position companies so that they at least have the knowledge of what it takes. If there's an EV battery that is being produced and there's a widget that needs to go into that battery, they need to have the knowledge in order to determine, okay, what does it look like for us to enter into that space?
These programs will be run by Invest Windsor Essex. The goal is to find potential gaps in the supply chain. Those batteries mentioned will be built at the Nexstar Energy plant when it goes into operation early next year. Now, companies will be asked what they do now and how that can translate to what automakers will need in the future. Ontario is investing an additional $330 million a year into pediatric health services. The announcement came this morning at the Children's Hospital of Eastern Ontario in Ottawa.
We know that when your child gets sick, the last thing you want to deal with is a backlog list or a wait list. You want care and you want it fast. That's why this new investment will be targeted at high-impact initiatives that can be implemented quickly to reduce wait lists for youth and connect more children to the care they need when they need it.
Those initiatives include hiring more staff for surgeries to further reduce wait times, rapid access clinics to divert children away from busy emergency rooms, as well as building 8 youth wellness clubs to make mental health supports more accessible. New funding will also include more services to improve and speed up recovery after surgery. The desire for more homeownership remains very strong in Canada despite skyrocketing prices and rising mortgage costs. We've seen the massive jump here in Windsor last night, sharing a report with you about how hard it is to find an affordable rental. But we're not the only region dealing with a tight market. In Vancouver, there's huge competition to buy a house. That has people looking at some creative ways to get into the market, including buying with strangers. CBC's Saurabh Sandhu explains.
People gather outside of an East Vancouver property for the first stop of what one local realtor is calling a shareable home tour. Prospective buyers are not only visiting homes, they are taking part in what Noam Dolgin describes as a matchmaking process.
You date partners, you talk to your friends, your family, and other strangers to see who has similar values, similar timelines, similar goals, and would need complementary housing to partner with. Then once you've seen a pathway for yourself, an eventual partner to work with, you go into the engagement phase.
While unaffordability is the main factor in entering into such an agreement, many are also interested in the potential of building community.
Connecting in a friendly way would be great. I'm looking for people with kids of similar age.
I like living with other people, and I would rather live like that.
Looking for somebody who is very community-oriented, right? Somebody who believes that it takes a village to help each other, right? We're supporting each other.
However, just like with most relationships, there can be complications as well.
You're sharing a mortgage together. And if you split up, it would play out much like a divorce settlement. Or if one party can't suddenly make the payments, the other party is on the hook.
This single father of 2 boys is interested in owning with strangers, but he is wary.
The concern that any partner I go in with might not be able to meet their financial obligations is a real concern.
Despite these fears, many are ready to dive into an otherwise out-of-reach market for the chance to have a place to call their own.
There's no question this is a housing hack to create affordability in an otherwise unaffordable city.
The bottom line, he says, do your homework to make sure you're compatible with any future co-owner in what could be the biggest commitment of your life. Saurabh Sandhu, CBC News, Vancouver.
An animal rehabilitation center in Amherstburg has a possum problem. There's dozens of these marsupials being nursed to full health. The center says it needs some help. The CBC's Mike Evans has the story.
Can we see? Can we see? You're gonna show? I know. No, you're not. I know. Hi.
A lot of them come from moms that have been killed, unfortunately. They're usually getting hit by cars. You know, they're found on the side of the road. Some good Samaritans have gone and checked their pouches and either brought the babies or actually brought the whole possum. Possums are very passive, you know, they are not usually aggressive. You know, anything will be protective of their young, so they might be a little growly at times. They'll growl and drool and show their teeth, but then they have the power to just play dead. They're good for your neighborhoods. They eat ticks and other bugs, and they scavenge around for other food, so they're good to have around.
Possums aren't native to Essex County, so tell me, how did they get here?
The original possum, I believe, came on the back of a semi-truck, you know, from the south. They exploded population-wise. So the reason why they're not good around here is because they have no hair on their ears, their tail, and their feet, right? So we get pretty cold, they get frostbite. So they'll gather leaves and hide in the shed or under the porches, or they actually hook up with the cat colonies, right? So they're in the cat houses.
And how many would you say you have here now?
We have about 48 juveniles and 4 moms. And each mom can have up to 13.
They're here until they get healthy. It's a rehabilitation center. What happens when they get healthy?
When they get healthy, they actually mature pretty quickly, pretty small. So when they're 6 to 7 inches from nose to tail, or nose to body, sorry. So they have to be able to be afraid of people, you know, how to growl, how to be able to find their food before we let them go.
What do you guys need from the community?
We can use basically everything. So food, you know, like standard dry cat food, dry dog food is the basis of our diets. Extras is what we really need. You know, so like canned soups, canned fruits, canned vegetables, things that we can add different varieties to their food.
Would you ever get to a point where you'd say, I'm sorry, we can't take any more possums because we're full?
We will always find room. You know, there are foster parents like me who tend to keep them at our house. So we always find space.
I don't know. I think that those possums are kind of cute, but that certainly is a lot of them. If you've come across one in the wild, you might have heard that loud hiss. Experts say that's created a bit of an image problem for possums. It turns out they're not aggressive animals. They're scavengers, and that hiss is an attempt to scare you away from its food. The biggest concern is actually their feces and urine, which could spread diseases. Wildlife experts say it's best to contact a trained professional if you think they're turning your backyard into their home. Well, possums aren't the only ones trying to change the public's perception. A group representing Canadian cattle ranchers has launched a campaign to polish the image of the beef industry. The Canadian Cattle Association wants to present the business as more environmentally friendly and as protectors of grassland ecosystems. CBC's Paula Juhatchek has more on what that looks like.
Visitors to the Calgary Stampede try their hand at a new computer game, Guardians of the Grasslands.
Players have a parcel of native grasslands and they have a small herd of cattle. And if they're moving around the paddocks and leaving enough grass behind, they're earning carbon points and learning about carbon sequestration.
The game is based on a documentary of the same name that says grazing cattle can play a key role in preserving the Great Plains ecosystem.
Working with ranchers to help manage the grasslands by using domesticated livestock to graze the land that bison roamed for thousands of years may be able to preserve this precious resource for future generations.
One researcher says grazing can be beneficial, though beef still generates far more emissions than other types of meat. He says people should limit consumption.
I just took that simple notion that if as a treat once in a while to have beef, and if it's grass-fed beef, that's not a bad thing.
As for whether the message will resonate with consumers, analyst Kevin Greer says while people may think they care about their meat's impact,
in terms of what drives consumption, it's the old boring things like price and taste.
the Canadian Cattle Association hopes to offer the Guardians of the Grasslands game in classrooms across Canada this fall. Paula Duhatchek, CBC News, Calgary.
Well, there's a nice sunny look at the Gordie Howe Bridge, and that sun definitely bringing the heat today in Windsor, Essex. Whether you like it or not, those temperatures are here to stay. Our Colette Kennedy joins us after the break. The FIFA Women's World Cup is about to kick off in Australia and New Zealand. Canada's team, obviously a contender after winning gold at the Tokyo Olympics 2 years ago. But the players are heading into the tournament with some unsettled business back home. The CBC's Katie Nicholson reports.
The hustle on the field, a little spicier today.
I think it's very cool that she was in North Toronto just like me. And made it all the way up there, so it gives me hope that I could do that too.
Excitement bubbling over because one of their own, Olivia Smith, is playing at the World Cup. 10-year-old Cassie Tuin doesn't intend to miss a single game.
We can see what kind of skill moves they're doing and how they beat off their defenders. So it really inspires us to be better.
The women's game has come a long way in Canada and the world.
I think this is going to be the best World Cup ever. Every single World Cup, because women have come from, rags to closer to riches in terms of the game and opportunities for girls around the world. And so each time, the level is just getting higher and higher.
Also high, tensions over pay equity. Many of the teams at this World Cup embroiled in labor disputes with their home organizations. Canada is no exception. But for now, players are trying to keep their eye on the ball.
We've compartmentalized that. We're totally focused on the tournament. Janine and our lawyers are dealing with that away from here.
Pay isn't the only thing changing. At this soccer club, a push to get more women in the coach's seat.
You see behind me, most of the people here today are females, and we do that just to have representation.
Cassie Tuin doesn't think too much about those fights off the pitch to make the women's game better. She's just focused on winning.
Oh, nice. You should never give up, even if you tried and it's still not working. Just keep on going, because you never know what's gonna happen. How I'm keeping on shooting on you, and you never know when it's gonna go in. High five!
And by the time these girls get their shot at the top, they might be on equal footing with the men. Katie Nicholson, CBC News, Toronto.
Colette, I know you know this. I'm a huge soccer fan, so I'm ecstatic to see the games get played out. I got to see this team play at the Tokyo Olympics while covering the Olympics, so I'm just thrilled to see them play again. Not so much looking forward to the late nights, but I know it'll be worth it. Now, for girls, Colette, playing soccer here locally, what kind of weather conditions can they expect?
Well, a little bit dicey tomorrow afternoon. I still have you here, Meg. I mean, I think our viewers should know you're also quite the extraordinary soccer player. You're not just a fan, right? You played university soccer, did you not?
I did, but those were back in the days, Colette. Back in the days.
Yeah. Don't listen to her, folks. Don't listen to her. But you can listen to me if you're trying to plan your activities for tomorrow, whether it's to be out there practicing your soccer or other skills. I do want you to just use some caution tomorrow afternoon, okay? So the reason I have a concern, so I've got high here, but say moderate to high, okay? But it's the timing of this. So with this kind of front pushing towards us and the peak daytime heating, if you put those ingredients together, we can get some stronger storms. And even if they develop into Michigan but hold together and press eastward, that's where I get worried about some heavy downpours, strong winds, some small hail, but isolated tornadoes, the possibility there too. So the timing on this, let me show you that in just a moment so you get a better idea exactly when. Normal high, 28. Today's high 26, 2 degrees off as well for the low. So just a tiny bit below seasonal. We're going to have some heat and humidity coming back early next week. So just enjoy what we have right now when we have conditions where we've only got a humidex at 31. Quiet conditions tonight. We aren't going to be concerned with that. Here's the system, though, that's back to the west of us. You know, that warm front not quite making it to Thunder Bay. So earlier this afternoon, they were at 18. They should be at a high at 25. And then as this kind of came through with some weather that's not all that great for them, 14 degrees with some of those showers. So that's some of the cooler effect further to the north. Here we go with the timing. There may be a little bit, say this is morning, things are fine. An appetizer, just meaning a few showers kind of poking their nose in and bubbling up around lunch. But I think it'll be more towards mid-afternoon to late afternoon, early evening. That's what I want you to watch. This may just be a little bit delayed from what I'm seeing. It could be just a bit ahead of that. So that's kind of that corridor sort of think towards your early mid-afternoon and then early evening. And then on the backside, a little bit of activity just kind of left behind as we go into Friday. And by that, I just mean a few little showers kind of popping up. But otherwise, it'll get into clearing for the weekend. So things will be improving. 18 for you overnight tonight, 29. A little more humid just kind of as that system arrives, and that's when we see things getting better. A slight chance I put in there of showers Sunday, but don't worry about it.
Okay, Colin, so just to get this straight, if you've got soccer practice tomorrow, you might be in for some rain?
Yeah, yes. You might be in for some wet fields, but it's not just that, because there could be some stronger storms, a risk of severe. I just want everyone to be paying attention. Have your phone, you know, that kind of thing. Know what's going on tomorrow, the second half of the day.
Wet fields equal stinky cleats, Colette. So
See, I wouldn't have known that. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, the largest office building in the world has just been built, even bigger than the Pentagon. We have more on that coming up. The strike by port workers in British Columbia resumed briefly today, but the picket lines came down just a few hours when the walkout was declared illegal by the Canada Industrial Relations Board. The strike was ruled illegal because the International Longshore and Warehouse Union did not provide 72 hours notice. The union has since delivered that notice, and the strike is set to resume Saturday morning local time. Workers are heading back to the picket lines because the union leadership rejected a tentative contract The proposed settlement had been presented by a federal mediator on July 13th. That tentatively ended a 13-day strike that had backed up billions of dollars worth of cargo at ports across BC. The contract had been accepted by the BC Maritime Employers Association. Union leadership says the deal doesn't provide adequate job protections. The U.S. Pentagon in Virginia used to be the world's biggest office building, but that's no more. This is the Surat Diamond Bourse. The city is already the world's largest diamond polishing hub. Nearly 90% of all diamonds are polished there. This new center has 9 towers covering 6.7 million square feet. There are more than 4,500 diamond trading offices and other facilities like banks and restaurants. The building is set to open in November. Well, that's it for CBC Windsor News. Don't forget, for news anytime, go to our website at cbc.ca/Windsor. We're on social media too. Check us out on Facebook and Instagram. Thanks for tuning in. Looking forward to seeing you tomorrow night.